name is Mike Disa. I am at the moment a showrunner for Warner Brothers Television. And I don't know how far you guys have gotten in your studies and the various terms you've learned, so I'll just explain that. A showrunner is the writer and executive producer of a television show. The particular television show I'm doing for Warner Brothers Television. It'll be out in Boomerang and Cartoon Network in a few months. And the name of the show is Wacky Races, and they've announced it, but I can't tell you much more about it because they haven't actually done all the publicity. One of the things that happens when you work for a big studio, and you all will, is that they make you sign pieces of paper promising you won't tell people much about anything. So the one I'm working on now is kind of a secret. But I've worked on many, many, many projects, and I'd like to start off and tell you how I got into the business, and it might be a path that you might follow too. So let me first start out with the fact that I was originally went to a college in Chicago called Northern Illinois University that you've never heard of because nobody famous has ever come from there because it's in Illinois. So I left Illinois because nobody famous ever was in Illinois, and I came to California about 22 years ago. And I came out here with a portfolio and a very old car and some gas money and nothing else. And I did what you've heard a lot of people do, it's a famous story, is I came out here and I was homeless. I had nowhere to live. So I lived on Venice Beach, and the police used to come and try to find me, and I would just drive my car from parking lot to parking lot every 3 hours. And I did that for 6 months. And during that time, because I didn't know anybody, during that time I made a living drawing caricatures of people on Venice Beach. So I met a lot of interesting people, but didn't really help my career out. And one of the nice things about you guys being in this school and meeting people like me and being able to talk to people and each other is that you have connections. So you're already a lot better off than I am. You know people in the business, you're getting to know people in the business, you have connections, you have contacts. So every one of you is going to end up more successful than me by my age. So you've already got a head start. I'm not even kidding. So that's the first thing I'd like you all to remember is the fact that the people around you and your teachers and the people you meet in this program are your most valuable assets. A lot of people get worked up about whether or not something is going right, or whether or not all the steps that they have to get done are getting done correctly, or whether or not their portfolio looks a particular way, or whether or not the videotape label that they're turning in for their portfolio is perfect. Let me tell you, it's okay to be concerned about that kind of stuff, but your most valuable asset is each other. It's always like that. When one of you goes out and meets somebody and becomes a little successful, they'll call up their friends because you always want your friends around you, you're comfortable with them. Help them get a job. Then somebody sees a script they like or a production they like, and you'll end up working together. And I know at school you look around and you're always kind of judging yourself based on how good you are compared to everybody else. But believe it or not, you guys and your teachers and your friends you make here are your most valuable asset. So I'll tell you what I tell my sons, who are both autistic and in programs up at the regional center and who are going through life and their career right now. I say, remember, get everybody's number. I know it seems simple. Get everybody's number, get everybody's name, and stay in touch. Call up your friends once a month. Now, while you're here, you'll be working on projects together, but when you graduate, you aren't looking for jobs, it gets lonely because you think you're the only person in the world without a job because you're sitting at home. Well, that's not true. So stay in touch with everybody. Your most valuable resource are your friends and your teachers that you're going to meet here. So appreciate each other, get used to each other, and like each other because you're all going to help each other. That's the only way anybody ever does anything in this industry. So I didn't have that. So instead, I lived with bums and indigents on the beach and was attacked by starfish and moonies. And it was an interesting year. And after a while, I was diligent. And that's the other thing I want to talk to you about. I was diligent. I went on a lot of interviews. I must have gotten rejected 50 times, maybe 60. It happens to everybody. It doesn't matter if there's only 5 rejections in your future, or 50, or 100. They're just there waiting for you. And the best thing you can do is just start them. Start to hear the no's, because every no is one less no than you're going to have to listen to eventually, and you'll eventually get to a yes. I have never met anybody who failed in Hollywood. I haven't. I have only met people who have given up trying. That is absolute truth, guys. I'm not kidding even a little bit. This isn't somebody just trying to make you feel better. This isn't somebody saying, oh, everybody can do it and give you a trick. I have never met anybody who failed at Hollywood. Hollywood is not that hard. It just doesn't even take talent. All it takes is persistence. The only people I know who don't work in Hollywood and wanted to are the people who stopped trying. Everybody I know who kept trying is working in Hollywood. I mean that sincerely. You know, so there is nothing stopping you except no. And you'll run out of no's and get to yeses. Eventually I got a yes, where I started drawing over people's cartoons for it was even before video games. I won't even tell you what it was, something just ridiculous. But I did these little cleanups, which means that somebody did a horrible drawing, and then my job was to go over these drawings and put them on models. So if it was a fish, I had to make it look like a particular fish. If it was a monkey, I had to make it look like the right monkey. And I got paid $3 a drawing. And sometimes the drawings would take all day. So on a good day, I paid for enough gas to get home. On bad days, I parked the car and slept in an alley. Again, so what? I got through it. And it was actually kind of fun. I enjoyed the drawing, stuff like that. One day I got promoted to animator, and I got $6 a drawing. And I started eating at Subway. And that was a big deal, because I started getting Subway sandwiches for lunch. And then from there, I met people that I worked with at that particular little studio, and they went on and got other jobs, and I stayed in touch with them. And this is the important thing. You know, take it from somebody who didn't have any training and didn't have any friends. Your friends and your teammates and the people you work with and the people you work with on the projects are the most valuable asset you have. And it's one of those things you just have to learn to get good at, which is just being nice to the people around you. I have no reason for saying this other than it took me a while to be nice to people. Be nice to the people around you. Get their names. Make sure they have your names. Exchange phone numbers or emails or hook up on Facebook. And stay in touch. Because honestly, 9/10 of what I got after that, I got from just people calling me, friends calling me. The other thing I try to do, and this is the other big part of it, so never give up. You won't fail. You'll be fine. 2, be nice and stay in contact with all your friends and the people you work with. And 3, be helpful. Be helpful. Do things even when they're not your job. One way, it's a great way to get to learn other jobs. Like for instance, I know it's disappointing to be camera 2. You know, I know it's like you wanted to be camera 1, you didn't get to be camera. Obviously this is a joke, there's no qualification between them. But, you know, like do other jobs. It's like the only way to get to know how to work a camera is to work a camera. The only way to get to know how to work a microphone is to work a microphone. And you're not always on every production going to get a chance to learn all the things you want to do. So when you get onto a production, you stay late and you offer to help. You find the person who's in charge of a particular thing you want to learn how to do, and they're going to be overworked and they're going to be tired. They might even be grouchy, which is where nice comes in. And offer to help. Stay late at night. If you enjoy what you do, and we do, we work in the best industry in the world, the best job in the world, then staying late is fun. All it means is you're missing television, and goodness knows we could all miss more television. and you'll learn the job. So eventually what will happen is, and this will happen in the next 5 years once you get out there, you'll know some people, those people will spread out to other companies and other positions, and a lot of the people you've worked with will like having you around because you're helpful and you're enthusiastic. And you'll stay in touch with them so they'll remember who you are. And one day, on every project, there's going to be a moment where somebody just needs somebody to come help them out to do something. And they're thinking, who do I know that's helpful, enthusiastic, and wants to do it? And they don't go looking on the job fair, they don't go on the internet, they don't go to colleges, they don't call up, big famous institutions. They think to themselves, who do I know who would like to do this job with me? Because it's a tough job, and it's going to be hard, and I want someone with a good attitude, and I want someone who's my friend. and they'll call you. Now, a lot of people get upset. They go, oh, it's so nepotistic out there. People just work with the same people over time, and nobody gives anybody a chance. Yeah, you'll be like that too. Because when you're in trouble and you got to reach out to somebody, you want to reach out to somebody you know you can count on. So your jobs are to get to know people and be the person that people count on. What do I mean by that? It means you keep lists and you write things down and you don't forget when you have to do something, and you set alarms, and at night before you go to bed you run through the list of stuff you were supposed to do today. And in the morning when you wake up, you go through your routine and you go through the list of stuff you've got to get done. And you have checkpoints. Organized people like that are the most valuable people in Hollywood. Everybody can be an artist, but very few people get it all done. And those are the people who get called back over and over and over again. So that's my big advice, because when people ask me really how I went from being homeless on the streets, being chased by dogs and rats up and down the boulevard of Venice Beach, which happened, I give them all sorts of, depending on who they are, everybody wants to hear a different thing. But if I had to tell you guys the truth, it was, I got to meet some people, I worked very hard, I was persistent, and I was helpful. So people called me and gave me chances to do things. And I did them as best I could. And I did them better every time. So the first time I did every job, okay, let's be honest, I didn't do it so well. But I learned. So my next job, after getting the $6 an hour and eating at Subway, was some little job on a TV show. I was freelancing at Warner Brothers on Animaniacs and stuff like that. I went over to Disney TV and I got a couple little jobs on DuckTales. I was barely making a living. I lived in this horrible house, this horrible apartment with myself and my girlfriend at the time, who was now my wife. We called it Casa de Pee-Pee because it always smelled like pee-pee no matter how much we cleaned it. And we just went through and I got these terrible little jobs one right after the other. And then eventually I got a nice, steady job. You know, and I think that was on a movie for Ralph Bakshi. Now, if you guys don't know who Ralph Bakshi is, you should look up his stuff. He directed the, you know who he is?
Didn't he do Space Ace and Dragon Tail?
No, that's Don Bluth.
Sorry.
I worked for Don Bluth too, and he still owes me money.
Oh. Then I do know one thing Ralph actually did. He did the animated Lord of the Rings movie.
He did the animated Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know who that hack is who did the live action ones, but he stole it all from Ralph. There are literally scenes in the animated movie that aren't in the book and were in the live action movie, and Ralph's not credited with them. He did a great job. It's a brilliant, he was always my hero. He directed a movie I loved when I was growing up, and my sons love it now. It's called Wizards.
Oh, I've seen it.
You've seen Wizards?
Yeah.
Right, that's Ralph Bakshi.
Yeah.
And it's about the coolest movie I've ever seen.
It's like sci-fi fantasy.
It's sci-fi fantasy, and it is cool, and it's adult, and if you like superhero movies, you'll love this one. This is great. And the guy who drew the opening credits for that was a fellow named Mike Ploog. And so the reason I bring this up is because I thought Mike Ploog was like the greatest illustrator of all time because I'd seen this movie with his drawings on it, and I went out and found out who this guy was who did these drawings. Well, one of the things I did when I was finally able to eat at Subway was I went off and I found out who Mike Ploog was and where he worked. And I tried to get a job there. And I eventually met Mike Ploog. He didn't think much of me. But the difference is I got to meet him. And through him, I got to meet Ralph Bakshi, and I got to work with Ralph Bakshi, and I worked with him on a movie. And they taught me how to do special effects. And it was great. I got to go on a live action set for the first time. I got to work with actors for the first time. It was really exciting. And from there, I was unemployed a lot, worked at video games, I ended up one day desperate. And I tell you this because as much as people tell you that you got to know stuff and you have to have portfolios and you have to do things, it's all true. But the most important element to success is a good attitude and persistence, I'm telling you. One day, I had been thrown out of work. It's a long story. You should also learn to sleep a lot so you never get edgy at work. I got edgy at work once. Anyways, I left this company, and I had my fiance, who's my wife now, and she was going to school, and the rent was due, and we were going to get evicted. I was out of money. We were going to get thrown out of Casa de Pipi. Actually, I think it was a better place with it. And I just did this thing, and it's not a bad technique, and I'll tell you what it is. I got on the phone and started calling everybody I knew. And I wouldn't let the person I talked to on the phone, I said, look, I'm out of work, I'm doing this, do you know anything? And they'd say, oh no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And I said, okay, can you give me the name of somebody who I can call? Well, I don't know anybody who's hiring. I didn't ask you if they were hiring. Just give me the name of somebody who's in a position to hire people, and give me his number. And I'll get off the phone with you. But I'm not going to get off the phone with you until you give me this person's number. And I said, okay. And then I called that person. And I said the same story, introduced myself, had some nice conversations, met some lovely people. Almost everybody was really sympathetic because they've all been through it. And I said, I need, do you have a job? No, I don't have a job. Can you give me the number of somebody who might? And everybody said, well, I don't think this guy's hiring, but I'll give you the number. I was on the phone for 12 hours that day. I went to the bathroom once in a while, but I didn't get up, didn't eat, nothing. I was on the phone from like 6 in the morning till like 5:45 at night. And the last person I called was this guy named Phil Nibbling. And Phil Nibbling was a fairly well-known animation director who was working in England at the time, but had just recently come back to direct a movie for Steven Spielberg called Casper. And I finally got a hold of him, and I told him my story, and he's like, look, I don't have a job for you, and it's 15 minutes until I have to go home, and I'm tired and I want to go home. And I was like, Phil, please just let me meet you. He said, I don't have any jobs. Please just let me meet you. Well, I don't have any jobs, and please, just let me meet you. I know this guy, I know that guy. Finally, it turned out we had some friends in common. He said, come on in, but I'm telling you, Mike, we don't have any jobs. I'm like, great, I'll be there at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Mike, I don't get in at 5 a.m. I'm like, all right, well, when can I come in? He said, come on in at, our first meeting's we get in around 9, first meeting's around 10. I'm like, I'll be there at 8:45. So like, I'm sitting on the Universal lot, in the Steven Spielberg compound, where they've got like, all the stuff from E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark is all sitting on there, with my portfolio waiting to see Phil. And I sat around for a long time. And eventually, Phil brought me in, and I sat down and we started talking. And there were a bunch of people around him I didn't recognize and didn't know. They were all guys with beards and baseball hats, because that's how everybody at Amblin dresses. And I started doing my pitch with him and all this stuff, and I'm showing him my portfolio. He's like, yeah, he must have said like 10 times, there's no work here. I was like, I know, but I want you to know what I do, because someday you're going to give me a chance. Someday we're going to work together, and you're going to be glad you did, because I'm going to work harder for you, and I'm going to do good work, and I'm going to get better. He's like, but it's full. And I'm like, I know, but someday. Okay. And what happened was he asked me to leave the room for a few minutes, and then he called me back and he said, okay, we're going to give you a test. We give you a test, and you got a week to do this test. And I was like, thank you so much. I'll have it for you tomorrow morning. He said, no, it takes a week. I'm like, I know. The next day, I had the test done. First thing in the morning, brought it in, showed it to him, and he's like, okay, well, I don't think we still have anything, but we'll look at your test. I got a call, and he said, okay, you're hired. And I went in. And long story short, it turned out that one of the guys in the room who I didn't recognize was Steven Spielberg. And he just kind of thought that the enthusiastic kid who really just wanted to be good at this someday was, and they made me a spot. And it wasn't a great spot, I was the lowest ranked guy on the movie, and I was thrilled to be there. Thrilled to be there. And I would sit there and I just soaked it up like a sponge, and Phil taught me amazing things, and the team taught me amazing things. This is the Amblin team. These are the guys who shot Raiders and all this stuff. These are top of the line guys. I got to work with the ILM guys. They taught me a bunch of stuff about VFX. And Steven Spielberg let me sit in dailies with him and showed me how directors go through dailies. And from that was the moment when I figured out what a director's supposed to be, and that I really wanted to be one. And the rest of my life was just going to studios and getting jobs and working towards what I wanted to do. I'll run you through that in a minute. But how did I get that job? I got that job from being persistent and enthusiastic and nice and hardworking. And somebody else who was all those things too, happened to be Steven Spielberg, recognized it. I'm sure he wouldn't remember me. Recognized that and gave me a shot. I said, okay, good, tell him. That's usually what happens. People see somebody like you is sitting out there somewhere successful. And at some point, you'll walk into their life and you'll be enthusiastic and happy and really, really, really want to do the job. And they'll give you a break. And that'll start things for you, and that'll open your eyes. So, working with Steven Spielberg made me decide I want to be a director. And it took a long time after that. I left that studio, I went to Disney and worked on every animated film from just after Lion King to the one with the cows. Whatever the name of that.
Home on the Range.
Home on the Range, thanks, yeah. Well, that was a fun film, I forgot all about it. But I worked on that, and then I left there and I went to work on Looney Tunes Back in Action. And then I did
like that.
Oh, thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you. Eric Goldberg directed that. He was a great guy. So did Joe Dante. And then I developed some movies for Warner Brothers after that, but Warner Brothers division went down. And then I did a pilot called Creepwood, about a supernatural team of kids, about a group of kids who hunt supernatural menaces. Did this pilot for Warner Brothers, no money, worked hard. My first chance at writing. They didn't pick it up, but I got to make it and went on my reels. And then from there, I went to work on a movie called, because I knew people, and people, at this point I could call people up and they liked me enough that, I was always, it was harder than I'm making it sound. You always think you're never gonna work, but be enthusiastic, you'll be fine. And I got a call from some people who worked on Rob Zombie's El Super Beasto. And I don't know if you've ever seen that film, but it's an R-rated, intense film. Okay, I got pulled onto that, and I got to be the final director on it, who pulled it all together. And then from there, Harvey Weinstein came and saw my work and heard what I was doing and offered me Hoodwinked. So I did Hoodwinked for Harvey Weinstein. And then after Hoodwinked, I went on and did 2 action horror films called Dante's Inferno and Dead Space Aftermath. And these are...
You did Aftermath?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm a fan of the Dead Space games.
Oh, cool. There you go. So I did the movies. Yeah, I did the movies, which, if you haven't seen them, are very hard, are very graphic, very violent horror movies, because I've always wanted to make a horror movie. So I went on and made those. Then after that, I was asked to direct Postman Pat, which is possibly the sweetest English television property. You know how we've got Sesame Street here? Yeah. In England, they all grew up with Postman Pat. And then I did a movie for Icon called Postman Pat with David Tennant, the guy who plays Doctor Who and all that stuff. And he was very nice people. And I went over there and I was in London for a while with my family. And I made that movie. And then I came back and I helped out at Warner Brothers again on a couple of Bugs Bunny little films for direct-to-videos. And then I went to China because I got offered to work on the largest motion control ride in the world, which is like 5 IMAX screens next to each other and seats that move and spit stuff at you and the cuts that swing down, and it was just intense. And they were actually building the theater, and I went and I directed that and storyboarded all that, and that was interesting. And then when I came back, a friend of mine who I'd worked with on all these projects called me and said, hey, they're trying to do this new TV series over at Warner Brothers, and they're not quite cracking it. They're not having any success with the concept. And I said, okay, let me write something up and come in. And that's another thing. I do a lot of work for free. I do a lot of my creative work for free. Because one of the things I get paid to do now, as a matter of fact, one of the things I do more than directing now, is I write. And I've had 5 feature scripts bought and made. And I've got, but you can't just show up one day and ask to get a job as a writer. You have to show them something. It's just like when you're putting together your reel. You actually have to have something to show them. So it means if you want to do some of this stuff for a living, you've got to be willing to sit around at home at night and do it for free. And so I sat down for free and I came up with my idea for the TV series. Went in and met with the people. They hired me. And for the past 2 years, I've been the executive producer and head writer on this television show. And we're about 8 or 9, maybe 12 episodes into it now. and there's going to be 40 in the first season, and we'll see how it goes. But the thing I want you to remember when you leave here, isn't the fact that I got to meet famous people, because it doesn't matter. And isn't the fact that I get a big office now, because I do. But and it isn't the fact that, all that stuff that goes on in people's life. I don't want you to remember that. I want you to remember that the one thing I wish I had when I was living on the beach, being chased by killer porpoises with jetpacks, and it really happened, was the fact that I wish I had gone to school with people out here. I wish I'd known people. I wish I had people I could call and who could help me. I wish I had a group of people to work with. You have that. And if you have that, then all that's going to happen to you is this: hard work, good attitude, rely on your friends, help them out when you can, and then success. That's it. Everything else is just noise. Everything else is just noise. You will be successful as long as you appreciate the people around you and lean on them and rely on them. As long as you're helpful, as long as you keep these contacts and relationships, as long as you learn every day, and remember to be grateful, and get organized, which means write stuff down. Everybody makes fun of me because I'm writing stuff down all the time. My phone is beeping constantly, telling me what to do. It tells me when to get up and when to eat, and how long I'm going to write, what I'm supposed to be doing now, what I'm supposed to be doing an hour from now. And I don't know anybody who gets a lot done who isn't scheduled like that. So it's just a good habit. Like I said, my sons, they're getting through school now and they're doing fine. They work with the regional center and they have behavioral therapy and they have social therapy and everything like that. But the one thing that gets them through the day, it makes them happier and makes them successful, is we schedule them. So I'm saying I do it too. So you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be able to achieve your dreams. I've never seen anybody not do it who kept trying, but approach it with the right attitude. It is great to work in movies and television. It is great. It is fun. They say it's magic. It kind of is. I've never, at the end of a day of working with actors on a set, or recording actors, or being in an editing room, or location scouting, or working, on a CG piece of animation, I have never, at the end of the day, wanted to stop. I've spent 20 years doing this, and every night I want to keep going. Because that's how cool it is to do what we do. Bus drivers don't go home at night and say, gee, I wish I could drive my bus a little longer. Trust me. Well, maybe they do to get home, but that's it. As if they've stolen the bus, I suppose. But you're going to do this. It's going to happen. You're going to get these days where you're just thrilled to be there every minute. And time is going to pass so quickly. And you're going to go to sleep as fast as you can so you can get up and go back and do it some more. Every day like that is for me. Every day is like that for me. And you're going to get there too. So that's really all I have to say, unless you have any specific questions for me.
Okay, we will open the floor now for the Q&A session.
I was just going to say that out of all the animation projects that you've done, which one was your favorite and why was that?
Yeah, you see, now that's like asking somebody who their favorite kid is. And I do have a favorite child. They were all wonderful in certain ways. A lot of what any project is about, though, is you enter it very aware of the fact that you don't know how to do something. And so for me personally, what I remember in the projects is what I learned. And that sounds a little Pollyanna, a little cheesy, but for instance, the script I did, I got handed a script by the big famous Hollywood producer I told you about earlier, and I didn't think it was a very good script, and nobody else did either. But boy, did I learn how to make a movie look good on a budget. So do I think that it's objectively my best movie? No. I didn't have creative control of that, and I couldn't rewrite it. But wow, did I get a lot done on that film. Did we really, we, a little group of people, working hard at night, we put together a beautiful film for practically no money. And I learned so much doing that. That was a great experience. I didn't want to go make another film with a bad script, but I'm glad I did that one. Now there was another film I got where a buddy of mine, like I said, you meet people. Producer of mine brought me in and said, look, we've got this film and the director's, been canned, and half of it's shot and half of it's not shot, and we can't afford to reshoot anything, and we need somebody to come in and take the existing footage and rewrite the script and go out and shoot the rest of it for practically no money and then put it all together in editorial.
It's like Game of Death all over again.
It was. And I was just kind of like, oh, that sounds like fun. Boy, did I get good at editing. Because I didn't have any money to do anything else. And so that was a fun one too, because I learned, wow, you can do a lot in editing. You can take the movie and completely change it in editing. It made me appreciate editors. So I've got lots of stories like that. You'll find something to love about all your projects. I'm just going to work my way this way, if it's okay to be fair.
And it's sort of in opposite to his question.
Which one do I hate?
Well, yeah, basically, or a better one. Are there any projects you came close to that you rejected or came close to getting involved in that you've regretted doing so since?
I've rejected far more projects than I've actually done. And you're not in the position to do that when you're young. But I've rejected a lot of projects. As a matter of fact, I quit Disney and I've quit studios because I thought that the projects that we were working on were just not good. Now, admittedly, what happens is as you get older, your idea of what's good changes. I mean, and this isn't critique. Disney's essentially made the same film with different characters now 55 times. Nobody's surprised at the end of a Disney film, and nobody's like, been, horrified by the blood. It's essentially the same nice musical film with the same kind of comedy. It's age appropriate. It's a particular kind of film. And they do it very well. And it's aimed for families and kids. It's a babysitting device. Well, once you've done that like 12, it is. I've been in the writing sessions. They say, you've got to write a film that parents will be comfortable leaving the kids alone to watch. And that's fine. That's their business model. I'm not objecting to that. But once you've done that 15 times, you probably don't need to do it a 16th and pretend, you're Alfred Hitchcock. So what happens is you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm done with this. I've learned everything I can learn. Some stuff I thought was just wrong to make. I won't say the names of those because they went on, they made films, and whether they did well or not. I just thought they were wrong. I thought that the story was inappropriate in some way. Other projects I've walked away from because, again, I thought there was an ethical problem with doing it under the conditions I was being presented. Have I ever regretted walking away from a project? Never. Have I wished I've walked away from more? Yes. Because here's the thing. If you decide right now what you want to be, if you want to be a director right now, you want to be a director, then you got to start picking your projects. Oh no, it's okay. You got to start picking your projects, thinking about where do you want to be. Do you want to be a director of family films? Do you want to be a director of suspense films? Do you want to be a director of horror films? Do you want to be a director of films that are especially well written? Do you want to be a director of adventure comedies? Well, if you have a place you want to go, don't waste time doing something vastly different. I like horror and comedy. I do. I very rarely get to blend them together, but I like horror and I like comedy. So I wish I'd spent less time making the same silly family film over and over again and gotten to the other stuff quicker. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
What if you were more open-minded and wanted to experiment with different genres?
That's fine, but there's a debate there that you must keep in your mind. Liking everything is almost the same thing as liking nothing. Let me tell you what I mean. What you're gonna do requires your absolute passion and intensity. And that means the project you're working on, the material has to feed back into you, has to give you energy, because you're gonna be throwing everything you have at it. And if you're not sucking something back up from it, if the day's shooting, if the day's editing doesn't kind of get you juiced up at the end, you're not going to have the energy to come back and do your best. And what you're going to find is certain genres, certain types of storytelling give you that juice. They appeal to you on a level that other ones don't. And I'm not going to tell you which ones are for you. But as you go out and you start and you're looking around like everybody does, start to notice the ones that you really care about. Or to put it another way, if somebody really did lock you in a box and say, I'm not going to let you out until you pick 5 films to watch on a desert island, I would be surprised if those 5 films didn't have something in common. And that might be the thing you're interested in doing. You know, there's a reason why directors who do great comedy aren't necessarily great horror directors. And people who do Disney films aren't necessarily good at anything else. Okay, here's enough fun. It's because it's a very, very, very specific thing. And it requires talent. And you've got to spend a lot of time getting good at the various little things. Like in a horror film, it's not so easy to shoot a jump scare. It's not so easy to edit a jump scare. It's not so easy to score a jump scare. So you've got to practice it and get good at it. You're not going to do it well the first time. So if you've been making musical comedies, but saying, oh, I want to go do this horror film, and then you get a chance to do a horror film, you're not going to be so great at the jump scare, but maybe you'll work a dance number into it. See what I mean? It's like you tend to get, you have to work your muscles up. Another way to put it this way, it's very difficult to be a great baseball player and a great basketball player because you have to spend a lot of time practicing shooting hoops. If you spend some time practicing hitting a baseball, and some time catching a baseball, and sometimes playing horseshoes, and sometimes boating, and sometimes being a basketball player, what are the odds you're going to be really developing those particular muscles? So start with an open mind, take the jobs you can get, but always start looking for the thing you think you want to become the best in the world at. You want to be an expert at. Like every editor has their thing, you know? Everybody's a bit of a generalist, but like I'm really good at this moment. And this moment, this bit of editing I do really applies itself to, like, I don't know, romantic comedies. Excellence comes with success, and success brings excellence. So find the thing, the passion that drives you. And as you get older, what'll happen is, and this happens to everybody, your interest just narrows. I've gotten to the point where I don't really want to see the same thing over and over again. Or there's lots of stuff I used to be very interested in, and I used to go, oh, that's great, that I'm not interested in at all anymore. I'm doing something different now.
Okay.
Mostly standing in front of people making fun of Disney films. Yeah, it's just no fun. All right.
Hi.
Yeah.
What you were talking about, I'm really interested in, being a developer and creator of TV and movies, animated TV and animated movies. It's really inspiring what you're telling me, and I'm doing a lot of that already. But I have a question. My question is, I want to do a lot of different things, and my plan is to work my way up, doing various, different things. Like I might do animation for a while, and I might work in production, and I might eventually work up to getting up to the creative level. But I don't think you just have to pick one thing. You can just work your way up. Is that correct?
Let me tell you when I talk to my sons about this. So there's no right or wrong answer to this, but let me tell you what I tell my sons. I'm in my mid-40s now. Well, late 40s now. Oh, that just happened. And I'm aware of the fact that I only have so many more years to do this. It feels like when you're young that you've got all the time in the world to get good at everything. But the fact of the matter is that the first job you get is going to make one kind of job easier to get versus another. So if you're a PA, your next job as a director, the next job at being a director, it's an unlikely jump. You can't go from ordering people's lunches to directing the movie. However, if your first job is you go off and you raise money with your friends, and you make a short found footage film, and you put it, and you work hard, and you get it into a film festival. I think maybe directing might be an easier job to get next, if that's where you want to go. So one of the things I'm always telling my son is like, look, there's not enough time in life to think you're going to get to do everything. So take a few minutes You're going to be open to opportunities. But take a few minutes and think, where do I want to end up? I wish I had been in a position to do this more. Successful people I get to know, especially successful people with a lot of money, the advantage they always seem to have is they didn't worry about making a living, so they always got more time to right work from the beginning, decide what they want to do, and focus on that.
Yeah.
I always had to make a living, so I had to do a lot. I had to get good at a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
And now that I'm show running, which means I'm writing, directing, and drawing, and storyboarding, and hiring, and running the budgets, and doing the color work, and doing the editing, and doing the music, and all the stuff that I do on my shows, I've done a lot of that stuff, so it helps me be that.
That's what I eventually want to do.
Right, but there's another way you can do that,
Yeah,
which is
same.
just start doing that. What I mean is just start inventing your own shows and putting them together with cameras and getting them on YouTube. Just start doing the thing you want to end up doing. There is no direct path. There is no fair way. Like if I do this and this and this, then I will get that. That isn't how the world works. What it is, are you good at the thing you want to do? The better you are at it, the more opportunities you're going to get to do that thing. So the sooner you decide, I want to be a great sound man, and you start studying sound, and you start getting really good at the sound equipment, and you start going on and experimenting with different ways of recording sound, and you start experimenting with different ways of editing sound, and you start different ways to distort sound, and you learn the sound software, the more valuable you're going to be on a production that's looking for that person. What happens is a lot of us just drift. You know, I always see my sons drifting. They're waiting for something to call to them. And in my life, nothing ever called. As a matter of fact, everything tried to run away. I had to chase it down and tie it up. You know, so, you know, it's okay to be open to opportunities. And if somebody comes to you and says you want to do something, yes is my default answer. But start thinking about where you want to be in 20 years. Do you want to be Steven Spielberg? Do you want to be Robert De Niro? Do you want to be the head of Warner Brothers? Do you want to be the world's best sound person? Do you want to own your own production company? Do you want to own your own studio that provides equipment and gaffer tape? Do you want to be the person who owns and runs the editing studio or the post facility department? All these things are fantastic, fulfilling, marvelous, wonderful careers. And I work with people who are brilliant at all this stuff all the time. But everybody eventually picks the thing they're good at.
Yeah, I think what I'm good at is, I've always been good at telling stories when I was in school, and I've studied stories, so I want to dive more into that.
I didn't realize till much later in life that what I should be doing is writing. You know, I was spending a lot of time drawing, and then it occurred to me I'm trying to tell a story with this drawing, and I could just type it. And so I spent like 10 years learning how to write, and then all of a sudden I'm writing and directing my own stuff. I'm a writer primarily now, and it's going very well for me because it's where my talent lies. I wish I'd started it 15 years earlier. I wish somebody in college had said, "Hey Mike, why don't you write a script?"
I take inspiration from a lot of different people that have done numerous things, like Matt Groening. He did a lot of, performing on that series, and he was pretty open to that.
Yeah, Matt's great.
And people have created big things.
Oh, no, okay. Well, I'm going to move on and say, but yeah, no, it's good to do that. And by the way, the great thing about being in Hollywood is you'll eventually meet all these people, and when you do, it's great to say, ooh, watch him and say, I'm going to be like him. I spent a lot of time learning how to be other people before I learned how to be me. So, okay, I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to work my way back here again. So, go ahead.
So, about you said earlier about a new TV show they're getting to from Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's it going to be like? What's going to happen in the future? What's it like, and what's the theory and all that?
As far as the show or me personally, my career?
The show.
I can't tell. The lawyers made me sign a piece of paper saying I wouldn't tell you anything about it until the show came out.
An
So
NDA?
I can't. Yeah, an NDA. So it's a non-disclosure agreement, which is enforceable by law. So you can have me back after it comes out, and I can show you episodes and talk to you about it. But I can't tell you. Other than the fact that it's the funniest thing ever.
Funnier than Mario Kart? Is it funnier than Mario Kart?
Yeah. What isn't? No, did I just say that? I don't know what Mario Kart is. I'm sorry, so you were asking a question?
What was your favorite horror movie that you something?
My favorite horror movie ever?
Yeah.
I like movies that don't jump out, like I don't like horror movies and slasher movies like that. I like disturbing movies. So I really like The Shining. I think if you guys have ever seen The Shining, it's like so disturbing to watch.
Here's Johnny.
And there's a couple of really great, I watch a lot of these Japanese horror movies that are super disturbing.
John the Grudge.
The Grudge is unbelievable, isn't it? So I like stuff like that. But I mean, again, it doesn't matter because my movies aren't like that. And you should always get used to I appreciate this movie and I'll watch it, but it isn't necessarily what I want to do.
So, have you worked on superhero TV shows?
Yes.
Okay, how many?
3 episodes. It was back before I was in charge. So back then I would be a freelance artist and come in and do boards. And they were fun.
Okay, can you name the 3 superhero shows you
I
worked
don't know
on?
if I can. I worked on a Batman and I worked on 2 Batman and was it a Superman or a JLA, something like that. Yeah, these were storyboards I did.
Were these like the old superhero?
See what you guys call old.
Like so original?
Yeah. I worked on the Fleischer ones in the 30s. That was fun. No, not that. I worked, this was back when I was coming up and learning storyboards. I worked on some superhero stuff because it was around. I tend to not do that anymore. Just because, as much as I love superheroes, it's all gotten very dark. And I can't help it. I'm just one of those people who just likes...
Lighthearted.
I just think heroes should be heroes.
I'm the same way.
Tell me about it.
But that's not to say. So I worked on some X-Men stuff, and I did Spider-Man, Maximum Carnage, and I did a bunch of stuff like that. And it was all intense and fun and jumping around. And I like very much the stuff that, especially Warner's Animation is doing with the Batman and Superman franchises, and that's great. I haven't seen the new movie, but for me personally, and this was I was talking about how we can't always do everything. My vision of a superhero is, I think, a little bit different from what everybody else's version of a superhero is these days. So instead of being one of those guys who wants them to do it my way and being grumbly and gruff and everything like that, it's okay, well that's great, that's your thing, fantastic, good job, keep going with it. I'm going to go over and do this. And I'm doing this action race show now, where I get to make everybody very heroic and very nice and very friendly, and I feel good doing that, and it makes me happy. So here's the thing about the reason I bring this up, is pop culture isn't always going to be exactly what you want it to be. And every version of Star Wars isn't going to be the best movie you've ever seen in your life. And every version of everything Star Trek isn't going to necessarily appeal to you. The challenge to be a professional artist is you look at it on its merits. You don't see whether I like it or not like it, whether or not I want to watch it again. Hey, I think the best television series ever made was Stargate SG-1, okay? You guys probably don't know what that is, but I think it was brilliant. Yeah, okay. I think it was brilliant. It's not about whether you and I have the favorite or the same taste in TV shows or superhero movies or remakes or books or music. It's whether or not we take it seriously enough to become good at it. Are you good at the thing you love? Are you happy doing it? Are you enthusiastic? Does your presence on a set, does your presence on a project make that project better because you made everybody's day happier? You made everybody's day go quicker. You were helpful. You were enthusiastic about what you were doing, and you helped people do their best work, and you did your best work while that was happening. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you and I would make the same Batman movie. If you're making a Batman movie and I can help, then I'm doing my job. If I'm making a Batman movie and you can help, then you're doing your job. And you should take every project you get to do and approach it just like that. This doesn't matter if this is my favorite thing in the world. Am I doing the best job possible?
Right. So let's have a hand for Mike.